In Russia, dozens of protesters have been arrested after clashes with riot police in the central region of Bachkortostan. Thousands of people demonstrated there after an environmental activist was sentenced to 4 years in prison for allegedly inciting ethnic hatred. His supporters say that he is facing persecution for his political views.
Rare images from today's Russia, a country where even peaceful street protests are met with a harsh response. Police dispersing demonstrators in the town of Baymak with the help of tear gas and stun grenades. It all began after a judge sentenced a local activist to 4 years in prison. Fail Alsinov was taken into custody after the ruling.
My huge thanks to you all who came to support me. I will never forget this. I do not plead guilty. I have always been struggling for justice, for my people, for my republic. So, God willing, we will see each other again.
As the verdict was announced, hundreds of demonstrators who gathered outside began chanting slogans in his support. Security forces intervened, and at least several arrests followed. Alsinov has been a prominent eco-activist in the central Russian region of Bachkortostan. He has also campaigned for the protection of the regional Bashkir language and condemned Russia's war in Ukraine. He was sentenced for a comment considered racist by the authorities, but which he says was mistranslated. The ruling led not only to street protests, but emotional pleas by his supporters on social media.
I am calling on all fighters from Bachkortostan to leave the territory of Ukraine and return to their home region to defend their land and their people. While you are fighting for the ambitions of one person, your people are being beaten up by security forces.
After the hours-long standoff, riot police finally dispersed the demonstrators. The rally in Baymak has been one of the biggest protests in Russia since the Kremlin began its war in Ukraine. As the jailed activist begins to serve his sentence, it appears that some of his supporters may follow him. Authorities have launched a criminal case into mass riots, a crime with a punishment of up to 15 years in jail.
All right, I want to go now to DW's Yuri Ricetto. He joins us now from Riga in Latvia. Riga, of course, is where our bureau is, following the closure of our office in Russia. Yuri, these protests, they ended just a few hours ago. What made so many people take to the streets?
I think, Brand, people protested for two reasons, obviously. The first reason was obviously the punishment of a popular environmental activist who not only fought for the environment, by the way, but also became a kind of symbol of the fight against the arbitrary actions of the authorities. And that brings us to the second reason. This is obviously about people's accumulated anger, their dissatisfaction with their own government, because they not only loudly demanded the release of the imprisoned activist, but also the resignation of the Bashkir Prime Minister. Slogans such as "We are a free people" and "shame" were chanted. And I have to say that the people of Bashkortostan have a particularly strong sense of freedom. They've been protesting against the destruction of the environment there for years, and often with success. I've been to such protests several times myself as a reporter and can say that, yes, this region has clearly a lot of potential for protest.
And Yuri, what do we know about this environmental activist, Fail Alsinov, and why are thousands of people willing to take to the streets to demonstrate for his freedom?
Well, Fail Alsinov is a very well-known person in the Republic of Bashkortostan. Until recently, he headed an NGO that campaigned for Bashkortostan's independence from Russia. Of course, this NGO was banned and classified, meanwhile, as extremist. The reason why the police are now accusing Alsinov on inciting ethnic hatred was a statement he made during the environmental protests in April this year. Back then, in his speech, he referred to foreign migrants in the region from the Caucasus as black people. That alone was enough for the authorities now to send him to prison for 4 years. The protesters, however, the protesters today believe that the real reason was to silence the best-known activist, someone who has always expressed their wishes, their demands, and their dissatisfaction with those in power. In other words, from the people's point of view, the real reason is to restrict their freedom of expression.
And how does this, Yuri, play into the wider picture? I'm thinking of politics in Russia. I'm thinking of Vladimir Putin's grip on power. I mean, there is an election coming up.
Absolutely, Brand. Speaking generally,